it wasn't just that he wasn't accepting me for who I was as I was going through these changes, but I wasn't accepting him for who he was as he wasn't going through these changes. And so at that point, we started to really accept the relationship for what it is and to kind of get out of this like construct of like what marriage is supposed to be.
Hi everyone, this is Polycurious. I am Fernanda, and on this episode, Mariah and I speak to Tarynn, who is a New York-based psychotherapist. She focuses on alternative sexualities and lifestyles, including non-monogamy, of course. And if you're looking for therapy and want to connect with her, you can find her website in the show notes. Tarynn grew up religious, married right out of college, had a child, and if it happens to many, she started having issues in bed with her husband, which led them to opening up. Fast forward to now, she has been with her husband for 10 years, but also has another serious relationship that she considers as significant as her marriage. In this conversation, we talk about the importance of accepting your partner for who they are, no matter how different they might be from you or from the ideas that you have about how a relationship should look like. We talk about how she achieved a comfortable kitchen table polyamory with her partners, which basically means that they are both comfortably around each other, around the kitchen table, and they're friendly to each other. We talk about what it's like to have a daughter while being polyamorous and how she will approach the subject when the time comes. And about an idea that I found really important to put out there, which is that people tend to assume that if you're polyamorous and you're having issues with one partner, it is because of the other partner, when that might not always be the case. We dove into so many interesting topics that we hadn't really covered before, so I can't wait for you guys to hear our conversation with Tarynn.
So hi, Tarynn. So good to have you on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. We've been friends for quite a while now, and just really excited to hear your story and dive a little deeper into that.
Yeah, me too. I just met you, but that's another reason why I'm very excited, because I was just telling you actually before we started rolling how I love when there's someone that you don't know very well and, you can just like start from the beginning and kind of like hear everything that they have to say, because there's so much to talk about. So yeah, I can't wait to dive into your story. But before we go into your journey into non-monogamy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your upbringing, how was like growing up like for you?
I'm really happy to be here. And it's nice to meet you, Fair. I grew up, had a little bit of an interesting upbringing, but essentially I was raised in a Jewish modern Orthodox family. So very, very, very conservative and traditional values. Not a lot of alternative thinking, really traditional. Modern Orthodoxy is basically where you follow traditional laws of Judaism, like from the Old Testament. Most Orthodox people observe Shabbat, so there's no use of electricity on Fridays and Saturdays. A lot of Orthodox women dress modestly. Sex is, as in most religions, looked down upon until marriage. But the modern aspect is that we weren't really in a bubble. Like, we were still very much a part of the secular world. My parents both had regular jobs, had friends that were both men and women, perhaps even had some progressive ideals politically and whatnot, but just a lot of stringencies and also kind of a lot of really like this idea of sort of sticking with your own kind, keeping yourself immersed in the Jewish culture and the Jewish identity and not really straying from that.
Right, and I assume that's how you met your husband. Was it through the community?
Yeah, I kind of like went with the motions. Graduated high school. I went to a year abroad and studied religious studies in Israel.
Nice.
Yeah, I lived there for a year. And then came back to the States, went to a pretty Jewish undergraduate college for my undergrad. And I met my husband actually through my roommate.
Oh, nice. And how old were you at that time?
I was 20 when I met him.
Okay, and how had your sexual journey been like to that point? Had you I assume that your parents expected you to remain virgin until marriage?
Yeah, my parents expected me to remain a virgin until marriage. That was not the case. I was very curious about sex at like a pretty young age. And, even in high school, I lost my virginity in high school.
Oh, okay.
But they didn't know. And it was kind of like a don't ask, don't tell. Like maybe it's possible they had a hunch, but it wasn't something that we talked about. Also, I guess something that's important to point out is that, we weren't not allowed to date when I was younger. It wasn't unusual for myself or my siblings to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. But there was still like this standard of like, it's going to be wholesome, or maybe it's going to lead to marriage, that kind of trajectory.
Right. And you ended up marrying your husband when you were 21, right? You mentioned.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty young. I feel like when I was 21, I don't think I had sex, but I actually hadn't even had an orgasm, like pretty young in your sexual journey. Anything you mentioned before, you went into it without having explored that much either. So how did you eventually realize that you wanted to open your relationship?
Well, I didn't explore as much as like a normal 21-year-old would have, but I did explore. Pretty much my entire year in Israel, I was having sex. Sex with soldiers, sex with yeshiva boys. Yeah. So I was definitely exploring. And, as we know, like we're in our 30s now, right? So as you get older, I think your understanding of what an orgasm is and also what you're actually feeling intensifies later. So I probably was experiencing orgasms, but I wasn't experiencing orgasms as I do now. It was kind of just like a rite of passage. It's like the way I grew up, it was like you go to Israel, you go to college, and while you're in college, there's this expectation that you're going to find your husband. So that's kind of what happened to me. In terms of us eventually opening up, that didn't come until much later, around year 4 or 5.
After marriage.
Yeah. We were having, issues in the bedroom, as young couples typically do, or even any couple eventually typically reaches this point where it's not that exciting anymore. Like you're with the same person for so long. And it kind of just becomes like a routine. It becomes mundane. It doesn't happen for everybody, but it does happen a lot. It happened to us. And my husband was like really not satisfied. And I was frustrated with that. We started to see a therapist, and this was actually pretty unprofessional of her, but she suggested that maybe we explore, that maybe we get on a dating app together and have a threesome, or we date somebody together, or we just kind of like spice it up in that way. I was like totally not about it. Abe was like a little bit more into the idea.
So you mentioned before that he was not satisfied. Do you feel like you were satisfied in the sexual relationship with him?
I wasn't satisfied, but I was busy. I was just kind of like, I wasn't really considering that I needed to nurture that side of myself or even that side of the relationship. And I was a lot of laziness. Like it was like, whatever, it's fine. Like
also, by this time, had you had a kid yet?
Actually, we did. Yeah. She was really young. She was like maybe a year old.
Yeah.
So it was also that. Like I was also like a new mom. I was in grad school. I was working. My body had changed quite a bit. Like I didn't really have this like strong desire for sex after I had my daughter. But so he was like more interested in the idea. And I completely was like, no, it's not happening. And then I actually went away to visit a childhood friend in Texas. And while I was there, I downloaded Bumble, not with any intent to cheat, but just to kind of like see how I would feel, like looking through different people's profiles. You have to remember that I got married in 2013 and dating apps were not a thing.
Right.
So I never even experienced a dating app before. Something about exploring different people online really kind of got me horny. And actually, when Abe came to pick me up from the airport, I was on the plane the whole time fantasizing about being with other people with him, that we pulled over on the side of the road and actually had like insane sex. And then after that, decided that we should go on dating apps together.
Oh, wow. Were you fantasizing to have him and another man or another woman?
Him and another man.
And did you tell him that? And like, that's how the spontaneous sex happened?
Well, when I got off the plane, I just told him that I'd been fantasizing about sex and was really horny. And we pulled over to the side of the road and had sex. And then afterwards, he was like, "What got into you?" And then I told him.
And he didn't feel any sort of jealousy or betrayal from that in any way?
No, because, well, you have to remember, we have like a really strong foundation. He knows me and there's like absolutely no possibility, that I would ever cheat or be dishonest. I was really honest about it. And he like really reaped the benefits of it, I guess, because like we had like really like hardcore sex on the side of the road after I got picked up. So I'm pretty sure he was just more happy about it than anything.
Right. So yeah, you found that thinking of yourself with other people, but with him, like kind of like ignited that desire that was kind of a little bit pushed to the side because of life and circumstances.
Yeah, it kind of like gave me this like excitement about just exploring like a new adventure. And it was something that I was so close-minded to until I was like, let me like see, and let me like actually give myself a chance to like see how I feel about this before just like saying no without actually like really thinking about it.
Yeah, and how was it? How was your first experience opening up?
Our first experience was actually kind of weird. We got on Field and we met this awesome guy. Actually, I'm still in touch with him. We're like friends, and it's interesting because we both sort of grew up similarly. And so we like relate to each other in this way. Like it's kind of like this naughty thing that we both have. But we invited him to our house, and I was like really excited to play with him, but was so nervous about Abe's feelings the entire time that I kept like stopping, our interaction and being like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I also didn't tell him that I had a baby. And so at one point the baby cried and he was like, "What the fuck?" So like it really just didn't go well. We actually like didn't even end up having sex. We did kind of like other stuff and chatted and got to know each other. But I guess it was like a really honest representation of like a couple just opening up, and we've remained friends since.
Nice. Did it actually help your sexual relationship with Abe, like separately from when you were with other people?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like became this bonding experience because, like I said, he and I were never on apps before because we were married before they were a thing. And so we would like after work have dinner and then kind of like get on the app together, and it was kind of fun and kind of exciting to like maybe think about the potential of like inviting someone else into our bedroom. So we did that for a while. We had a lot of experiences together. We started going to play parties together. And I think like the dynamic started to shift once we started going to parties together because we are completely different personalities. I am like a super extrovert, very outgoing, make friends really easily. Abe is more introverted, a little bit more shy. It takes a lot longer for him to kind of come out of his shell and show people who he is. And so I started to feel like at these parties that he was kind of like holding me back a little bit. And then I expressed that I wanted to kind of separate at these parties and see how it goes. And it usually went really well for me, but it was really not fun for him because he was just so shy. And so he was watching me kind of get this attention and have these experiences, and he felt really left out. The jealousy wasn't really about me having sex with somebody else. It was more about him feeling very left out and pushed to the side. After that, we kind of just talked about taking a break from the parties for a little bit until I felt like he was willing to like come out of his shell and put that effort in. Because if you're going to a party and you're trying to like play with another couple, both of us have to kind of like do the work with that couple. It can't just be me and then like, oh, and here's my husband.
Right.
You know, you don't know him at all because he hasn't really said that much, but want to sleep with us.
Right.
So I started going on the apps and dating separately from him. And he started doing the same. He had a little bit less patience with it than I did. And, you know, just being a female, there's just a lot more opportunity than for a male, especially a male who is married. You know, a lot of women aren't really about that life. And so it was really a struggle for him.
Sure. And did that ever develop into being easier over time? What ended up working in that situation, or did it not?
It actually got really, really hard. So I started dating this guy and I was really into him. And at the time, this was really in the beginning stages. So I didn't really have as much knowledge about non-monogamy or polyamory. I wasn't really being so considerate of Abe. I was really just kind of like a kid in the candy store and really just excited and selfish. And that relationship really, really kind of like messed up our dynamic a lot. He wanted me to stop seeing this person. We started to continue therapy and we were at an impasse a lot because he was feeling really threatened, which is something that happens a lot. And we were fighting a lot. And ultimately, we actually decided to separate. And it was more than just the non-monogamy. I was kind of like going through my own journey where I think that for the majority of my life, I was kind of just focused on like doing the right thing and making my family proud and going with the motions about what they expected of me, that I started to feel like I don't even know who I am. And I felt like I really needed time by myself. I went by myself to Burning Man. We were separated for about 6 months. And at Burning Man, as people typically do, they learn a lot about themselves. And I just really missed Abe and realized that it wasn't just that he wasn't accepting me for who I was as I was going through these changes, but I wasn't accepting him for who he was as he wasn't going through these changes. Like I had this expectation that he should be on the same page as me, that he should be asking similar questions to me, that he should feel uncomfortable being complacent. And at Burning Man, I kind of realized that I needed to start accepting him for who he was. And then we got back together after Burning Man.
That's amazing. Because I feel like usually when people go to Burning Man, it's just like, forget my life before. I'm going to start all over. And
well, we also have a child.
yeah.
And we have like this really special love for each other. It's like we are each other's family. Like there's just so much more to it. And so at that point, we started to really accept the relationship for what it is and to kind of get out of this like construct of like what marriage is supposed to be. And just we started writing our own rules and we started trusting each other and our intentions in this more. And since then, we have had like a really beautiful kitchen table style polyamorous relationship, or really I like to look at it more as relationship anarchy.
Yeah. So I want to get into that a little bit more, but I guess I want to understand too, what was it that shifted? So you understood that you needed to kind of consider him more, but what did that actually look like?
I think that I was just expecting him to do what I was doing. Like, we would go to parties and I would be like, why isn't he as outgoing as me? He's not this partner in crime. I think I was really worried about how other people were perceiving us. But like, that's all bullshit. Like, what we have is like really strong and really real. And I just started to take that at face value and to also just be okay with being different.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel identified in the sense that Seth, my partner, he's a much more like introverted person, and I'm a lot more outgoing. I'm actually the only one in the relationship who's non-monogamous. And
So am I.
oh, that's awesome. Actually, I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, I want to interview someone who is in the same situation as I am. And here you are, and I didn't even know that. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, like, it's not so much that I worried, what other people think. I understand that, in your situation, in like at a play party, it's a different dynamic. I've never gone to like a play party with Seth. But definitely like coming to terms with the fact that he's not as outgoing as I am, and just being like, okay, well, he's going to stay home and I'm going to go out, and maybe like to some people, it might be like, where is Seth? Or like might find it a little weird, or I might wish that he like came out with me more, and which is actually something we were talking about yesterday. But then you just come to terms with the fact that you are one type of person, he's another type of person. And maybe that's precisely why you work with one another and you can't have both. For example, I love how like he's so chill and like how he likes to be at home, and like that makes me stay home. But at the same time, when I want him to go out, I want him to go out, like, and it's just like you can't have everything. Like you have to accept people the way they are. But I find it really interesting that at first Abe was the one who wanted to open the relationship and you didn't want to, and now he is not practicing non-monogamy and you are, so things kind of like flipped. So I guess what he was looking for was just to like ignite the desire in your relationship, I guess. Or why do you think he's choosing to be monogamous?
Well, for him, it was really all about the sex. I realized ultimately that it wasn't just about the sex for me. It was also about like having an intimate romantic connection. I also should specify that Abe is, I guess he's not fully monogamous. He is open to sexual experiences with others, but he doesn't really feel like there's a need for any kind of romantic or intimate fulfillment with somebody else.
I don't know if you've seen that in your practice, but I've noticed that in the podcast. Like almost every couple that I've interviewed, the woman has been saying like, I realized at some point that I wanted more romantic connections with people. I don't want to stereotype at all. I'm just saying this is something that I've noticed. I don't know if this is something that you've noticed in your practice, that men are more interested in sex and women are more interested in the romantic
Connection.
aspect of relationships.
Well, I think men and women are like titillated in very different ways. Men are often more visual creatures. Women usually need a little bit more intellectual stimulation. And yes, this is not a rule. I know many women who are just kind of down to get some strange and move on. But typically, I think that's a reflection of just like how different men and women are in terms of their just emotional structures.
Yeah, and even probably biology. I don't know. I've mentioned this book before. I don't know if you've read it, Come As You Are.
I have not read it.
I've linked it to the show notes before. I'll link it again. But basically, in this book, she talks about how women need more stimulus to get aroused in general. Like
That's
there's
true.
exceptions, but there's like studies that show that men are more easily aroused spontaneously. So like they might see like an image and like immediately like they get a boner, and like we are more like we might need a little music and we might need a little candle and a little conversation before, in general, but that's not the case for everyone. And actually, when I read that, I was like, oh, this is great. Like validating the fact that I might need the perfect music and the perfect lighting. And before I would be like, oh, why is he so turned on? And I'm thinking about the fact that I don't like this song or whatever it is, right? And like after I read that book, I was like, you know what? I don't care if he doesn't care about the song. I care about the song. I'm gonna stand up and change it, And like I think that really like helped me with my sexuality. But anyhow, we drifted off. But
I think it's like I also don't want to like pigeonhole this sort of like with gender. I think like people in general are just wired differently in terms of how easily or not easily it is to become aroused. And also just some people have more of like the emotional bandwidth to want more complex relationships and intimacy in their life, and others just don't. And in this case, I clearly have more emotional bandwidth for this, and Abe is just kind of like, he's a businessman. He wants to provide for his family. He wants to relax. He wants to chill. Like opening up, another serious relationship is just not a thing that he's interested in. But I'm sure that if that kind of happened naturally, maybe he would be open to it.
Yeah, sounds like because you accepted him, he was able to accept you. Like you guys were like, we don't work together because we're different. Let's break up. You broke up. You're like, okay, no, let's accept the fact that we're different and continue together. Sounds to me like.
Yeah, and I guess I also just like explained to him, and I think over the years he realized this about me is that I am like a constant evolving human being. If he wanted to stay with me, he would have to accept that I don't want to be held back from my growth, and my growth doesn't have to threaten our relationship.
You have another partner that you've been seeing for over a year now, right?
Yeah, we have a really serious relationship. And Abe is my nesting partner. We have a child together. We pay bills together. We kind of like strategize our lives together. My partner is, we'll call him Jay. He is a very serious relationship. There's no hierarchical thought about that. Like it's as significant of a relationship.
How does Abe feel about that?
Abe actually feels great about it. Jay is at our house all the time. They have become very friendly. Everything's really on the table out in the open. We'll host dinner parties and things like that. And Jay is there. They will text about stocks. It took a little bit to get there, but everyone's really connected and everyone's really accepting about what the relationship is.
Yeah, can you tell us how you got to that point? Was there ever any like conflict with Abe? And maybe like some tips, because I'm sure that there's people who have partners who they want to connect with their nesting partners or their primary partners.
So I guess I could say I am a communication expert. I really, really, really push for radical honesty and active communication at all times. And so very early on expressed to Jay what it was that I needed, how it was that I needed him to communicate with me. And same thing with Abe. And so we were kind of like all on the same page about the way we communicated. We would have difficult and awkward conversations just all out on the table. I think it's just about kind of like taking your ego out of it and just like being really real and supplying like a comfortable environment so that everyone feels safe talking about all different kinds of things. Maybe I got lucky in this specific relationship dynamic, but they both, Abe and Jay, root for each other.
And that's been like that since the beginning, or?
It's been like that since the very beginning. I mean, I will say that when I started dating Jay, Jay was in a very serious relationship, which ultimately ended. So that dynamic really made this kind of progress sort of delayed. But once that sort of ended, Abe really wanted to support Jay through his breakup. Abe was really encouraging about me spending more time with Jay to kind of give him that support.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Yeah, it was really sweet. Before I recently went on a trip with Jay, and Abe was like, just so you know, like Tarynn gets really grumpy on the way home, kind of like helping each other in a way. It's just remained safe. I think what it really comes down to is like just accepting the relationship for what it is. Like Jay does not have expectations that he and I will be nesting partners. I'm not saying that will never happen, but we kind of choose to live in the now. Like right now, this is the situation. We really make a conscious effort not to practice this kind of like relationship escalator. Like a lot of people get into a relationship, they're with each other for a year, and then they're like, okay, what's the next step? Are we going to move in together? This is very freeing in the sense that like everything's out on the table. There are none of those expectations. We're not thinking about the future. We're really just focusing on the here and now.
So does Jay have any other partners as well currently?
He currently does not. I do encourage him to do that, to date if he wants to. Right now, he did get out of a 15-year relationship and he's kind of just like enjoying this dynamic. He's in his 40s. He's not looking to have children. That's not an interest of his. And so I don't think he feels really rushed to kind of settle down in that way. And I think he's enjoying the family aspect that I kind of provide to him as well. So I think everyone's just kind of like taking it day by day.
Because he's close with your daughter?
Yeah, he's close with my daughter. He's over quite a bit. They will play together or do art together with us. We've gone bowling all together as a family. But it's not weird for my daughter because the way my household kind of is in general is like this open door policy. We have all different kind of friends over all the time, staying over. I kind of normalize like cuddling. It's just very normal for her already. But I think that she knows that Jay is a, very special friend.
Right. It's interesting because in preparation for this interview, I was listening to some podcast with like the one expert or like the one person who's done some research on polyamory and like families and children. And what she was saying is that kids who grow up in like polyamorous arrangements kind of acquire social skills that other kids don't have. So in a way, it is a plus to live in this sort of arrangement, even though some people might think that, it might be weird or whatever. But she was saying that the most harmful thing to kids was not the arrangement itself, but the stigma around the arrangement. And I know, your kid is like 6 years old, so she's very young, and there's probably no need to explain right now what the arrangement is, and she's totally fine with knowing that Jay is your friend. But do you ever think of like how you're going to present this to her eventually, if you are, or do you feel concerned at all around the stigma that she might experience?
The only concern that I have is that we're in a very precarious situation because she has a very close relationship with both mine and Abe's parents, and we are closeted to our parents. But I don't plan on lying to her. My daughter never needs to know what's going on in my bedroom, monogamous or not. My sex life is none of her business and would be inappropriate to share with her. But, if she ever, as she got older, point blank asked if me and Jay or me and whichever partner was in a relationship, I would be honest with her. I think honesty is really important. And I think being dishonest only further stigmatizes things.
Sure. So
but
you don't.
I'm kind of just like seeing how it goes, like just like they say, like there's no manual for being a parent. There's also no manual on being a poly parent. I am kind of like researching different children's books and things like that to kind of like just introduce the idea to her in general. She, I'm sure, is also going to become familiar with the kind of work that I do. The way that we would probably go about it is just explaining how like love isn't wrong, no matter how you choose to love, and that the only time it would be wrong is if there was dishonesty. And she can very easily see that there is nothing that I'm hiding from her father because we'll all three be in a room together. Everything's really out in the open. Like, I don't think that as a young child and as she grows up, she would see it as being something wrong because it's not a secret. So I'm kind of just like playing it by ear, but I'm choosing to be honest.
That transition from Abe kind of being uncomfortable with that first relationship that you mentioned that was causing some conflict. But now with Jay, seems like from the very beginning, it was great. So obviously there was a transformation on Abe's side. So I was wondering about that transformation, how it happened.
He needed to realize that he was getting in his own way. He wasn't trusting me. And it was like he had to be faced with this loss of like possibly not being with me to realize that all he had to do was just kind of like accept. Partners need to accept each other for who they are more and not take it as a threat.
So what did he not trust, though?
He really just had this insecurity that I was going to leave him behind. Like I was going to find someone better than him. And that's his own insecurity, which is valid, right? Like everyone has that insecurity in a way. But like all of my actions were showing that I cared, right? Like I went to therapy with him every week. I was talking to him about everything. I was asking him how he was feeling. He wasn't looking at like the facts right in front of him. And he was just really jaded by his insecurity and his emotion. And eventually you have to be like, am I going to let this come between us?
Yeah. And, I feel like that's one of the biggest questions in non-monogamy that I myself have, because, I feel very secure in my relationship. But, when people are afraid that they're going to lose someone if they start seeing someone else, it is true that it happens. I know that, for example, in your situation, Mariah, there were other issues in the relationship, and it wasn't necessarily because of your polyamory. But those things happen. So like the way of like trusting that that's not going to happen is that Abe needed to realize that you were going to communicate. Like, and still it doesn't mean that it cannot happen, but like it's not like it's going to be like from one day to the other one, I'm going to leave you for someone else. Like he's going to know where you stand because you're going to continuously communicate. And
well, it's also this like idea of like, if I'm going to leave him, why does it have to do with the other person that I'm seeing? Like my relationship with Abe and Jay, although we do have this very lovely, kitchen table poly dynamic, they are separate relationships. If something were to happen to me and Jay, it would have nothing to do with Abe and vice versa. Well, it takes time for people to accept that concept into their reality because of just this whole concept of looking at relationship structures in a different way is new and it's challenging.
Yeah.
And I think that's like this idea that people have, right? Like they're looking for something to blame it on.
Well, it's actually interesting too, because I'm going through this situation, is that because I did end up breaking up, or Logan and I broke up and continued to date my new partner, he ended up experiencing a lot of guilt around it because he did feel like he caused it in a way, right? And it is because there is some sort of blame. And when I told my parents about it, and because I'm open to both sides of my family now, which is something else that's new in this podcast. Thanks. But when I told my father's side, I was like, the first question that they asked, they're like, okay, well, it's because you started dating this other guy now, right? I'm like, no, it's not. Like, we were having issues for years. I just wasn't happy in the relationship. And the non-monogamous side of it added another layer for me to kind of dive into and more so distract myself rather than actually provide a solution.
Well, and that's this like, that's the stigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not enough individualism in relationships. Like it
as
doesn't,
people are used to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be grouped in, right? Like one has nothing to do with the other. Maybe that sped up the process. Maybe that relationship gave me the courage and an outlet to kind of speak about it and draw this conclusion sooner than I would have before. But it's not the cause.
Right. Yeah, I mean, trust me, this has been one of the hardest and easiest breakups I've ever had, which has been such a weird place to be. But I think a lot of it is on the easy side is because I know I have another partner who's there for me and is supporting me. And, now too, I have a very good relationship with Logan, where we can be friends and still live together and coexist in a way. And just the both of us have realized mutually that neither of us were getting our needs met.
Cheers to easy breakups. Easy breakups rock. They don't have to suck, right? Like there's also this vibe that like the shit has to hit the fan when you break up with somebody. And it does it. You know, two people can kind of like realize that this isn't working for us anymore, and it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
But I think it also adds a lot of beauty to non-monogamous relationships in the fact that you do have an opportunity, because you're constantly exploring yourself, to see what is right for you and what is not, you know, and in a sooner time frame. So,
and we want to see what's right for us, right? Like we don't want to stay in relationships that are not great for us because we made a commitment.
Right.
You know,
or
like
that you're settling in a way.
Yeah, you want to find the truth. And both partners deserve to find that.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and having that freedom really benefits relationships, you know, in a lot of ways. Like probably Abe and I feel stronger about our relationship now that it wasn't like, you know, we were pinned against a wall and had to make this decision, or because we had to do what everyone expected us to do. We really chose this. And that's really powerful.
We had conversations previously about when you and Jay started forming a relationship together, that you were very clear on all sides that it was important that they do coexist. And do you find that because you pushed that in a way that created more of a space for them both to feel comfortable in that? Or was there any hesitancy or resistance to that idea at first before it did become comfortable?
I just kind of like naturally started to express to both of them that the lack of connection between the two of them was stressing me out too much. And they both care about me individually. And so they didn't want to contribute to my stress. And so I think that reason alone kind of like helped give them this push to just coexist. I mean, they also are similar in a lot of ways. And they also are really open-minded, loving people. So once you kind of like drop the ego or drop the like, this could be weird vibe, there was no reason for them not to connect.
That's awesome. And it is possible for the awkwardness to fade away with constant interaction. I assume that was the way it happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, I started realizing that it was like a problem. You know, we were invited to a friend's house for like a Christmas dinner situation. And I went with Abe and my daughter, and Jay was invited as well. You know, I would like pass Abe in the hallway and he would like think that I was like avoiding him to be with Jay and like vice versa. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like I can't even enjoy, you know, events at friends' houses because I'm like so concerned with both of your feelings all the time. You two need to take responsibility for your own feelings. And like, I need to just like be free in these environments. It can't consume me to the point where I'm not even enjoying things. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this?
Yeah.
I resonate with that a lot because I went through something similar with the structure that I had before Logan and I broke up. And it ended up being a very isolating experience. You know, I had my nesting partner, my primary being Logan, and then I'm dating this guy on the side that I wanted to also be a primary and didn't really understand that you can't have two primaries, that it is a relationship anarchy in that sense. But I did feel for a long time that it was more like parallel relationships, and that wasn't working for me. And I can see how difficult that can be, especially when they do start interacting with each other, that, you know, this awkwardness that's there. I could sense that it was there at first. And the more it was happening, the more that they did see each other and were around each other, the less awkward it was. And the more that they were able to accept each other and kind of support each other as well.
It's just easier. Like you kind of have to like explain it to them, like you're making this situation much harder for yourselves. And like if you want this to be easy and if you want this to be fulfilling and you want this to bring you happiness, then like you got to cut out the bullshit and just make that effort. Once I kind of put it in the ball in their court, it really started to change. I was like, I'm not going to be responsible for this anymore. Abe would be like, why don't you tell Jay this? And Jay would be like, why don't you tell Abe this? And I was like, how about you tell each other? I am no longer going to play this game of telephone. You have something to say to each other. Say it to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because that gets lost in translation as well, where you are then having to voice the concerns or the thoughts of one person to the other, and that you can get somewhat of the story, right? But it's not as good as them just discussing it on their own.
Yeah. And like at the end of the day, they were both feeling insecure when the three of us would be at like events with each other. And I was like, it would be just easier if you would be like, hey, Jay, I'm going to spend a little bit of alone time with Tarynn. Is that okay with you?
And do they do that now?
Now it's in the beginning, now it's sort of just kind of is very natural. And there's not this like inferiority complex. There's not this fear that like one relationship means more to me than the other. So there's less of that kind of like friction there. Like they're not fighting for my attention. Like they both trust that they're going to get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because I feel like, when, maybe the first time they meet or the first time two partners meet, the awkwardness that's there might feel like it's never going to go away.
Mm.
But it sounds like it does go away,
I mean, just like exploring,
anything, yeah.
Yeah, just like exploring non-monogamy just between a couple too, there is this discovery phase of like, okay, this is uncomfortable to me, or is this okay? Is that okay? And it's like constantly checking in with each other. And then eventually it's just like, oh, I know that making out with people at a party is fine. And like, I don't have to check in with my partner every single time. And that just comes with time and with experience while you guys are getting used to it. So
and with active communication.
Yeah.
Like burying these things and not confronting it doesn't help the problem. This goes with the territory. You have to be a really good communicator for it to work.
Do you feel like you've learned some skills also from your patients maybe, or the other way around, that your non-monogamous personal life has informed your practice?
Oh, it totally informs my practice. I have the ability to understand this dynamic more from just kind of studying it, right? Like I'm living it. Definitely informs that. And also, sure, my clients teach me things all the time. I might resonate with some of the problems that they're experiencing and take that with me into my relationships and into session as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about that more as far as your practice goes. And because I think that having someone who does see clients that have all types of alternative lifestyles can be helpful. So what do you say to people that are looking into therapy or are curious about, getting help for themselves?
I would say that all couples who are thinking about opening up or are going to be in a non-monogamous relationship, I would recommend that they see a therapist to be able to have that psychoeducation and that knowledge from somebody who's an expert in it, as well as perhaps lives that in a safe space. In New York City, there are a fair amount of therapists that specialize in non-monogamy. Oftentimes they become familiar through, maybe working with one client who's non-monogamous, experiencing themselves with that, and then kind of continuing. There are texts and things of that nature that kind of do educate therapists about how to work with this dynamic. But I think it helps to practice that in your life because it's more normalized when it's kind of in your own life than if you're kind of learning about those dynamics through your clients and then studying about it.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of playing both sides too, because a lot of therapists have clients that go through a lot of trauma that they haven't experienced themselves. And, they still have to learn how to relate or how to be able to speak on it, even if they haven't experienced it.
Absolutely.
So, myself, I would prefer to work with someone if I was to go into therapy, which I'm definitely thinking about it, to speak with someone who has experienced that, because I feel like it is more relatable. But at the same time, I don't think it is a necessity.
It's not a necessity. And I would say that there are tons of qualified clinicians who work with non-monogamous couples who do not practice it themselves.
You're so wonderful, Taryn. I really like you, and I feel like you have a lot of great insights. So I'm so glad you came. But before we kind of like start wrapping up the conversation, can you tell us like what your advice would be to someone who's just like starting to like dip their toes into the water of non-monogamy, or who might think they're interested or just like beginning to explore?
Someone who is polycurious, of course.
I would say the truth will set you free. Live your truth, communicate your truth. Don't be afraid to go for it and really ask for what you need. I think people are too afraid, and that could be because of the stigma. But if your foundation is solid, then this idea of radical honesty and communication should make things easier.
That seems to be a recurring theme for a lot of the advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And, also not everyone is willing to put in that work and that communication. But
Well, then you're not ready to be poly.
yeah. And that's okay too, But yeah, it's definitely key. So yes, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess I would say that I have professionally a few slots open for couples or individuals who are interested in exploring non-monogamy and polyamory.
Sign me up.
A little bit more. And if you're interested in learning more about my work or working together, you can follow a link in the podcast and get at me.
Yeah, for sure. We'll include those links. And I hope that there are people out there that were looking for some guidance and that are like benefiting from finding you in the podcast or outside. I definitely have benefited already. So thank you for coming to Polycurious.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun.
That's it for today's episode. If you liked it, it would mean the world to us if you shared this episode with a friend, with a lover, or even a family member. If you want to connect with us, follow us at Polycurious Podcast on Instagram or write to us at polycuriouspodcast@gmail.com. See you all next week.